Come and get started on a new mission, a new direction, a new intention. Welcome to 5.8G Alive at Connections 50 Plus. I am Terry-Ann Joseph Brathwaite.
And I am Jennifer Gibbons Joseph, catering to all your prospects in the third act of life.
Economic well-being, social gratification, personal fulfillment.
Join us on Wednesday at 6 p.m. on Connections 50 Plus Facebook page, YouTube channel,
and on Gael the Caribbean.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to Connections 50 Plus 5.8G Alive. I am Jennifer Gibbons Joseph, one of the co-creators of Connections 50 Plus, and as usual with me is my colleague.
Hi everyone, I am Terry-Ann Joseph Brathwaite, the other co-creator. Happy and excited to be here again. Jennifer.
Yeah. And Terry-Ann, today, this evening, which is what, Wednesday the 19th? Yes, we have a guest that you met a couple times before, who is actually an associate on our team, an associate of Connections 50 Plus. And you would hear me, Terry-Ann, we have been saying all the time, there have to be some solution, some hope for us out there. You know,
we cannot be the generation that gets locked out with this pandemic.
Yes, we can't sit down and blame the pandemic for not moving forward, or for not being happy, or for not realizing our goals.
Yeah.
Something has to be done.
Yeah,
and we talk a lot. Yeah, we talk a lot about changing mindset, doing something different. And guess what? So we have our guests coming to help us to really work through this time and come out just happy. Yeah. Come out, you know.
Yeah, Jennifer, because
we know, good mindset. Yeah.
We know that right now we are surrounded by a lot of bad news.
Yeah.
Our friends are dying, our relatives are dying, they're sick, people losing jobs. People are afraid of vaccinations. They're angry because they're not vaccinated. It's a lot of pressure, and it's all coming in on us. And we are beginning to lose some resilience. So
yes.
we
begin to cave in, Terry-Ann, that's a hint. We begin to cave in, and listen, we are not allowing you all to cave in.
Nope.
So
let's tune in.
There's the surprise. Yes.
Great. So let's tune in.
Great.
Wonderful. That's it. Well, followers, we are in tune. This is the In Tune segment, and Jen and I are thrilled as ever to have a familiar face, Dr. Allison Gibbons. And we, of course, are going to deal with matters of today. Allison, welcome once again.
Thank you. Good to be here. Brand new year, and unfortunately, the topic isn't new, but
it is so needed.
We thought we'd be on to something else by now, but
yeah. Allison, one of the things that we have been noticing in the, we had COVID, then we had Delta, I think we had Alpha, then Omega, and now we have Omicron. And it seems we had vaccines, we had 1 dose, 2 dose boosters, and now it just seems as though this virus is going on and on. But while we seem to be shrouded in, everyone knows someone who's been affected, a relative has died or something. But we have noticed something a bit more insidious, and it's really affecting our cohort. And that is the whole issue of isolation and withdrawal as it impacts us in this pandemic. Yeah. And I say this in the context of, okay, we have, you have to maintain social distance. A lot of the activities that we normally socialize with are closed or very, very limited. A lot of us have friends who are ill or passed on family, relatives. And we may have been the isolated generation before. Then with early COVID, 2020 COVID, there's 2020 and 2021 COVID. We would have been even more isolated. But now in the Omicron, and it seems as though it's what is going on, we have a sense that we are even more isolated, pressured, fear, and we wonder what is life? What is going on with life? And there must be some serious psychological issues that we need to be cognizant of, that we are battling, so that we can have a normal life.
Yeah, actually, Charian, there is a psychological term which is brand new that describes what we have been living through and continue to live through since COVID-19 actually started December 2019. And then the world went into lockdown March 2020. And we are still in a form of lockdown, and psychologically it's being called the cave syndrome. C-A-V-E, cave syndrome. In other words, people have retreated and hiding. And a cave brings to mind a picture of a stone enclosure where you're protected and you're not going to come out. So the cave syndrome is what we're actually discussing today. And it brings to mind some global historical things to me. A lot of people, when COVID-19, when 2020 we went into lockdown for a pandemic, which is a global event, people were comparing it and were digging up into the archives for what happened in 1919.
Yes, Spanish flu.
The Spanish flu. But what it brought to mind for me, because and the expression is so apt, is the Great Depression of the 1930s. Now, the Great Depression of the 1930s started as an economic collapse of the US, and then it affected the entire world. So why would the Great Depression come to mind? Simply because the term is so apt psychologically as well. But it's not only that the world went into economic collapse in the 1930s, but there was a psychological fallout, and people had to learn how to live on nothing.
Yes.
Literally.
Yes.
So from the 1930s historically rolled, we're talking about almost the decade of the 1930s, and then that shifted straight into the Second World War, which was 1939. And people went into bomb shelters in the larger countries.
More kids.
Because, and the Second World War went on until 1945. And people had to learn to live with that kind of fear and anxiety and hiding in place and living on next to nothing and not having an income and so on. In many countries, because the globe is connected, we're all connected. And a pandemic reminds us how we are all connected. 1945 was the end of the Second World War, and of course, the date would fall into 1945, but of course there were some lingering elements. And you're talking about the generation that was born just after that was the beginning of what's called the baby boomer generation.
Yes.
That's us.
Yes.
That's us. We were born, the baby boomer generation is, 1940. 45, 46, right through to 1965, about 65, those 20 years, right? Yeah. So anyone who is like 58 today, right up to 78, maybe those you're referring to as a cohort. Some people are a little bit younger and some a little bit older, but that's the generation that was born then. And we were born when families were now rebuilding and still living on next to nothing. And we were taught to work hard and to work long, and we're still working and give our children the best of everything, things that we did not have. I'm old enough to remember ration cards to get some rice and some sugar, because it was the end of the Second World War. And we're the baby boomer generation. And if you're younger than 58, you're the Gen X generation, but your children, you begin to be the children of the baby boomers, right? So we learn to work hard, and we learn to do with a little bit and stretch it and work and continue working and trying to give the best to our children. And just as we are getting, to where we think, okay, we are on a good course, or we have completed what we think we were doing, and we're looking to extend ourselves in retirement, like me, and so on. Then comes something that reminds us. It may not sound like the same, but brings to mind, all of those what we call the memories, the in-womb memories, the parent memories, and so on, of hiding out, of having little, of not knowing what's going to happen next.
Uncertainty,
So the cave syndrome is what it's being called, in terms of people are okay, we're not going to come out again, And I mentioned the differences within the cohort, because not everyone is 58 or 78. We have a range of people in the middle, and then if we're covering people from age 50, in these programs, then we have those that are a little bit younger, but have parents with those memories who would be anxious for them, or their conversations would be about anxiety and fear and memories of, oh my God, are we going to be alive tomorrow? Is the world collapsing? And those are familiar. They may sound new, but they're very familiar. The in-womb familiar, the child familiar, in the recent history familiar of what it is to have anxieties about something you cannot control, and wondering, where are we heading? Decide retreat. And retreat, and this time around, where we are this age now, and you're like, okay, maybe it's our turn to probably die out. What's the point putting out any more energy? We just retreat into preparation to leave this world, which is what people in their, the earliest baby boomers will probably be doing. So while they had I should say, because that's my age group, but while we were kind of getting some fresh energy to do some new things and be creative and so on, here came COVID-19, the coronavirus, the pandemic. And it feels like the Great Depression. It feels like we are at war with something we cannot control. We feel like we need bomb shelters. And we don't know, and we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So it's not surprising that we do have this cave syndrome right now, and that we can't drag people out of their caves right now. we really can't.
We are being told not to.
Right. Well, in addition to all the instructions that instill fear, and anxiety, we ourselves start retreating. And in retreating at this age, there's hardly likely a reason to come back out. We have to find some kind of motivation, and the motivation will come with the younger set. When I say the younger set, those who probably 50 to
50, 55, 45, 50. Yeah, 10 years just before.
Right. Not the baby boomers, but the ones who come right after that, and the children of those, to see if we could lean on them for some energy, rather than instill more anxiety and fear in them. But because we have raised these children in a way that we were not brought up, meaning give them so much, they're still looking to us for guidance. So if we are,
they're leaning on us.
They're leaning on us, because that's what they're accustomed to doing. That's how we brought them up. We, the baby boomers, we brought them up that way. We brought them up to lean on us, to have everything, to give them what they want, to call us when they're in trouble. We do not have those, those opportunities, but we gave them to our children. So it doesn't matter what age group those children are, and they could be, anything from 30 to 55, which is the age group of, a lot of our children.
Yeah.
They're still leaning on us. we are baby boomers, but so rather than we having the opportunity to lean on our children for strength and energy and hope for tomorrow, they're leaning on us and we don't have much more to give.
I
So
think
that's
we're testing our resilience. We're probably at the end of our resilience.
At the end of, we just don't have much more to give.
And Alison, when you said that, immediately, because that's how I feel too. They're saying like you're back up against a wall.
Yes.
Very who to turn to or what to do, which is what we're discussing here. And that is the, when you chat with friends or attending all these different funeral service, and after there's a chat, you get that feedback from people. What do we do now? It's like we have done everything. For those who have taken the vaccine, you had the booster, you're trying to be positive, and still, you don't seem to be getting out of it.
Well, right. Well, that's where the vision of the cave syndrome. In fact, a cave is not very deep, so you're back really up against the wall. There is nowhere else to go. You are in your cave, you're back against the wall, but you're not coming out. Because what's out there, you don't know. It's unknown, it's fearful, it's really, really frightening. And yes, we're living in a technological age and the information is not very reassuring. Even if we want to lean on that, and when the younger people, that's their world, the technological world, and when they try to lean on that for their information, it's frightening to them. So they come back to us for hope, for strength, for support. They're not working, they come to you, they've lost their jobs, or they just cannot function in a world that's calling not only for resilience, for a lot of creativity and spontaneity and action and immediate response to something that you don't know. And so we have all these these age groups where we are connected and we have different reasons for our different behaviors. And so any suggestion of a plan to come out of it is situational, in the sense that everything now falls on a lot of moving parts. What situation was that individual in at the time when we went into lockdown? What age group they were in? What plans they had in place? What kind of emotional strength they had going for them? What was their unique set of strengths or weaknesses at that point in time? So we may categorize them in little groups, but at the same time, it's individuals and understanding how are they going to get out of, do they want to come out of their cave at all? Someone who is, I'm going to be 75 in a few days. You figure, okay, the job we have now is to reassess what life means and what your goals were and making adjustments to that. But when you still have children who are leaning on you for some emotional strength as well, whatever is going on, it forces you to have to, that may force us to come out of the cave, because we have other people still depending on us and still looking to us for leadership. Even though the politicians, those who are in this age group, are trying to give, they themselves are in a state of anxiety and fear, but they are having to give leadership to countries. I don't envy the leaders at this point trying to manage something that they themselves don't understand. The scientists are being scientists, or the people accuse them of not knowing what they're doing, but that's what science is. You learn as you go along. Every time you get new information, you put it into the mix. And your recommendations change. And a lot of the cures for illnesses and so on that are medicine-based, some of them were discovered accidentally.
Yes.
When people were panicking, like, what do we do? And all of a sudden something else turns up and they're like, oh. So perhaps, the cures for coronavirus may be discovered accidentally, who knows? But meanwhile, The scientists are struggling, the leaders are struggling, and people are trying to figure out what direction do we go in. So those of us who are baby boomers know to look to ourselves, because everybody else is, everybody in the family looking to you. But even while we are within this, baby boomers are also dying.
Yes. Yes.
Granted, we may feel young, but the point is, the baby boomers are dying off.
Someone, I love that analogy of a cave, because I was chatting with someone whose close relative had passed, and they talked about withdrawing and wanting to just close a door, and it's so easy to fall into that mindset. And I'm thinking of you go into a cave, and when a stone is rolled in front of a cave, that cave becomes a tomb. And you really don't want to end up in a tomb. Right. Be in the cave for protection. But
people are about to roll those stones in front of the door of the cave and figure that's it, I'm done, Yeah.
And it's us. And
it's us, yes.
And we are thinking and saying, look, the essence of Connections 50+ is, no, you can't pull that stone in front of your cave with all the assets and the energy and the skills that you have. This requires a whole new creation. It's a creativity. So what is that? What is that mindset, that resilience? What is the psychology so that we recognize that when that door it's not a stone being rolled, but it's a door that we control. We have the key and the lever to open the door and go out.
Can I complicate Terry Ann's question a little bit more before you answer? What I was thinking of, the other aspect that is heavy, and I want to know if this is one of the reasons for the anxiety, where people may hide. You prefer not face the truth. You mentioned about science, and this is what science is all about. As you go along and something crops up, then you could create. But the doubt, people who don't have the knowledge, enough knowledge about the science, etc., tend to quickly go to doubt, to put doubt, because they feel that way, they feel better about not making choices. You with me on that? So they cast a lot of doubt.
Right. Some people avoid information because too much information can confuse a lot of people who may not be accustomed. In other words, not everybody is trained in the scientific method and the logic of that, and how to be rational about certain kinds of things. So it's like prefer not to know certain things. Yeah. Or people prefer not to do certain things. I think of all kinds of analogies. For example, there are a lot of small countries where people make their living by fishing, but they refuse to learn to swim. Because they're very fatalistic about it. If the sea is to take them, let the sea take them. And then you also have I wouldn't say they are myths, but the stories and the fabrications of stories and the folklore and the half-truths that accompany us in society, where the story of the sea, for example, and that's just an analogy, would be that drowning is a difficult death and it takes long and all of that, if you could swim, right? If you can't swim, you will go quickly. So a lot of fishermen never learn to swim, and in certain small fishing countries and villages, they do not want you to learn to swim. They don't teach their children to swim if you're going to go out on the sea, which sounds like a counterproductive kind of behavior, but it is. Human behavior is weird, and we know that. So in terms of the virus, it's the same thing. Some people listen to the myths and the legends and the folklore and the fabricated stories, and other people prefer not to know, and however I die kind of thing. And if it's the virus, it's the virus, and they press on with life. And then there are people who take in all the information and becomes overwhelming, and you still cannot make a decision about what to do. These things are very difficult, which is why it reminded me of the Great Depression and the World War, because you feel helpless in the midst of the anxiety. And even why, okay, let's take the reality of the science, get vaccinated, get a second one, get a booster. Israel is on its 4th vaccine. And there's talk all around me here in the US about getting a 4th vaccine. When is it going to end? We don't know. The scientists who work with viruses and epidemics, I should say, more so than pandemic, because we haven't had many pandemics. But at the same time, they said, give it 10 years. People like 10 years, are you crazy? Yes, it's going to be 10 years, which was like the war. You
want to die, so your cave is your tomb.
Yeah, your cave is your tomb. So what we're talking about is trying to stop people from putting the stone in front of the door, which is the last act, which is your last act. That is your last act, and we're trying to say, okay, you're in the cave, let's not roll the stone in front of the door.
You can control it.
Right. But people, how do you prevent yourself from doing that? You're looking out and you think, okay, it's not safe to come out. And how many more years we have to live? Not many. We might as well roll a stone in front of the door, and leave, and that's it. So we are talking about trying to prevent people from doing that. And it depends on what age group you're talking about. And again, what people's individual mandate for themselves in life have been, in the sense that some people would still have that energy, to keep going and not watch the clock and figure, okay, I've lived my 70, my 70. What am I looking for again? There are people who have learned, who have lived their lives and may have, prior to 2020, may have thought about continuing and putting some more energy in some other stuff and into their community activities and volunteering and to some projects that will make some money. And all of a sudden this comes, okay, 1 year, 2, 3, they're like, okay, shut that down, just shut it down. And then there are people who interpret their faith in different ways. So you have the flip side of the same coin. Some people are saying, well, maybe this is a sign from God and we're not supposed to do this and that. And maybe we should just go quietly, say our prayers and leave quietly and get ready to die. And there are others who would be the opposite. Okay, what are the lessons to learn from this that we could continue to carry on and pass on to our children and so on. It depends on where the individual person's head is. So if you have people who were into the anxiety, the natural anxiety and depression that comes with aging, you already entered that stage. And there is a lot of natural anxiety and depression that comes with aging. And we were trying to work on people's heads. Okay, let's not give in to that. Let's do this and this instead. And then you put the Great Depression, a greater depression on top of that. And rational anxiety, and I'm saying rational as against irrational because there's a reason, to be anxious.
Yeah, they may have also lost streams of income.
Well, that's a whole other thing. Maybe people who have been retired and could have and had some plans to do some extra stuff could forget about that and still live in retirement. Yeah. Not in the way they wanted to. But that brings a certain type of depression with it as well. That's when I talk about the natural depression and anxiety of aging. Retirement brings, that with it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we had programs encouraging people, okay, don't go into your cave in retirement, you know, you can do all of this other interesting stuff. Then there is this bigger reason to go into a cave, a more compelling reason to go into a cave. What are we going to tell them now? You know, they're already retired. Then you have those who are, you know, who plan to continue working until maybe 65, 70, and lost their job or were thrown into the technological world where they didn't plan to be there, work from home, do, you know, and so on. And then you had, again, people in our age group who may have been working essential types jobs, and, you know, and those were the ones who went home because of the age group they were in when the virus first appeared. It was, okay, we are in this vulnerable age group, so they can't be out working. So people went home. And doesn't matter the size of your home, it did become your cave.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could be living in 2 rooms or in 20 rooms in terms of the size of your house.
Come out.
Yeah, right. It's still your cave, and that's why it's being called the cave syndrome or what. So it's a matter of a whole new area of psychological counseling around. How do you get people to either live inside their cave as if they weren't in a cave, or avoid rolling the stone shut in front of the door where nobody ever comes in or leaves.
They can't come out
Ever again, right?
Yes.
So in any program, we have to address the different scenarios in which people find themselves. The older people, and I keep having to call myself older person, but the older people who finish their job, their career, and if they have resources, and if they were creative and innovative enough to have mastered the technology, and so that even while you're in your cave, the world is still open to you on a screen somewhere, and who can watch movies and play a game and talk to people on Zoom and
and
so
be
on.
Connected in the cave. That's
Stay,
a door.
right.
That's a door.
You know, and that's what's different about a pandemic in this era is the technology, the windows to the world that you can still have while you're in your cave. You could even do a whole job, you know.
Yes.
So people who thought that they were too old for the technology, and I'm talking prior to COVID, who thought they were too old for the technology and never learned it, never mastered it, and told the children, I don't need, you know, don't bring that by me. I will just, and people who still have to call children to turn something on for them and that sort of thing, and have no technological skills themselves. That may be a place to start with a particular group like that. Master the technology. Because that is, while you're in your cave, that's going to be your window to the world. So whether it is just to read what's going on, or literally a window. You remember a cave doesn't have windows and light, you know.
Yes.
So the technology is something that has to be mastered. You know, they have to, you know, buy themselves a tablet, you know, and people who are avoiding the technology. And we have a whole group within our cohort who have been avoiding the technology.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Totally avoiding.
Even now, in January 2022, they
are avoiding it. They think they can't. They think it's not for them. They think it's something for the children. You know, they were comfortable with just the, you know, with the TV. You know, and even then they still call people, you know, change this, and you know, they wouldn't even master the remote for the TV.
They love visitors, and with COVID, visitors are banned.
Exactly.
And no visitors.
These are people. We grew up with that. We grew up that way, and thankfully, I mastered the technology long before COVID came to visit. I was teaching online long before that. But I have colleagues, you know, in my age group who we don't have an age to retire if you're teaching university. So you have a lot of people in my age group who still teach, and who were teaching full time. I stopped in order to do it part-time in order to do other things with my time. But that's the only world they knew. And that's the only world, and that's what kept them going, getting up and going to work every day and meeting students and so on. But they never learned the technology. They refused to. In fact, I remember some of my colleagues telling me, because they couldn't understand it, they used to criticize it. Oh, that can't be as good as teaching in classroom.
Yes.
Or that, they would criticize it and criticize those of us who were taking course. I was busy taking courses in online teaching long before it was a required thing. It was just something that fascinated me. So, and I remember, the university actually was offering free courses, and they wouldn't take them because they would not express it as a fear. I knew it was a fear of the technology, but they covered it up with criticizing it.
Not realizing they were creating their own stone to put in front of the
Exactly.
They were building this.
I want to come in here, Allison, with that fear of technology. And you're talking about that. And now we are seeing it at Connections. I mean, we all different programs we will suggest, come on board, discuss, share. And that fear of technology is still there. And you have described well, that is one of the keys. That to me, it sounded like the main key from them.
Right. If you want enlightenment while you're in your cave, you better master the technology.
Right.
The
and
technology
this is what I'm
moving,
hearing.
right. It's moving so fast. So it's another
What
reason.
can convince them? What would you say? How can they be convinced that, hey, this is the little window you have to for your cave?
That's a big key. That's a little window.
Because I mean it's real and it's facing
some,
us now.
I was going, suggesting, I'm going to suggest some training, but again, we don't want them to come, they can't come out.
No.
So even the training has to be
Use
using
technology to be trained.
Right, the technology. So it's like one step at a time. If we could just get them to come on to Skype or Zoom, and then to demonstrate how to use their phone, how, even if they only have a phone, or what to do with a tablet, and so on. And as it's moving, as soon as you master this tablet, there's another one coming out. But if they could master the basics. But so many people cover their fears and their anxieties with all kinds of other excuses and explanations for things, or their brain old and they can't learn anything else, or that technology thing is the devil. People have actually told me that.
I'm probably bad, but I think you have to look for bang for the buck. And there is a group that may have been so far in the back of the cave that because of this technology, probably they're going to be walled into a part of that cave. And I think it is, if they're listening and they realize that, just that jolt may get them to realize the consequence of their holding on to an irrational fear. But I think there's another group who is willing. They know the technology, they have the tools, but for some reason are so paralyzed to try to step out, to do something new. You hear them saying, yes, I have to. And they're looking out at other people doing it. And they're saying, but that one is so brave. And this one is so this. And that one is so that. And that group, I think it may be in the future when the archaeologists dig out these caves. I mean, you might find the ones who got walled in because they just refused to do it. But the ones who had the means but refused to act. Now, what kind of cave syndrome is that? When you see what you're doing to yourself and not acting.
All of it is really based on fear. There are two kinds of fears. There's fear of letting go the life that you knew and your way of life that you got comfortable with.
2019 life we're talking
Exactly. But you know how it's as though the last 2 years didn't exist for all of us. But people hold on to, for all kinds of reasons. And there are many other examples of people holding on to things, but the life that you knew and the way that you lived it.
Yeah.
People are holding on to that because that kept them comfortable. You know, you hit your comfort zone and you stay there.
Mhm.
So when people get older, they hit the line of their comfort zone and they sit and they go, okay, you know, this is it. I reach. Yeah. I reach, this is it. I'll sit down in my rocking chair and deal with, you know, the children and the grandchildren.
And
will
all the
visit
things you've
and-
accumulated.
yeah, everything that I bought and the house and everything, you know. And they had envisioned life in a particular way. It affects people, even those who envision life with their children and grandchildren around them, and the children are nowhere nearby, in another country somewhere. They're not coming home, even nothing to do with COVID either, why they're not coming home. And so people are depressed about that. And, you know, I remember someone in a group we did, you know, who mentioned that, and I saw it, that, okay, you're frozen because, and you're still hoping.
They were retiring to see about the grandchildren.
Yes. And that's not,
the parents to see their plan.
that's not happening.
Mhm.
So getting people to see a different vision of life for themselves, where they can master technology, and maybe an idea in the sense of, okay, your children are overseas and you're going to talk to them on Zoom, you have to master this, so you have to email, you know, because that generation, the Gen X's and the Generation Y, they don't even email they're not phoning.
No.
You know, it's text and it's all the other versions of messaging, and you know, and it's Zoom on the go. You know, those are the
telegramming and they
yeah. Right.
Actually, last week I was speaking to someone highly intelligent in his profession, and I said, look, let me WhatsApp the information for you. And that went into a whole long argument about WhatsApp and being at a restaurant, and they bought the electronic menus. And he's telling me he was so annoyed. I mean, what is this place coming to? And I'm saying, but this is it. And he said, no, I prefer not order. And I'm saying, why? No, this is spoiling it. They think people have gone mad and just went off. And I am seeing it. And then you said it, dear. It is really a form of fear. And Terry and these are the people will remain at the back of that cave and be sealed in. You cannot do it. Seem that they have those, you decide, you know what? But you don't want, I'm looking at it, we have to be very careful to be too close to people who think like that, because it could also get us, you know,
be in the back of the cave,
more anxious. Yeah, more anxious.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing you, and what I'm thinking is like, at Connections, Terry, and we have a lot of these programs to do individual too, because as also mentioned, they have so many different people in different situations.
People in different stages and different situations. And all of it is, you know, all of the hesitations have to do with fear and anxiety.
Yeah.
People, but no one is going to admit that. People cover up fear and anxiety with every other thing. A lot with criticism or with irrational explanations for things. And they may lean on religion. You know, I can't tell you how many people, when computers first came out, said that's a devil thing.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, and that's a year, and people still have that thinking. Or I mean, and there's some reality and dangers to technology too. So we have to teach people that, because if you live in the US, there are all kinds of live dangers to exposing yourself to technology, and people targeting people in our age group for fraud and stealing your money and your bank information and your social security number and so on. It's not as rampant, I would think, in smaller countries, but in the US, it takes over everything. So while we're teaching technology, we also have to teach all those other things, and to let people choose which of the technologies they're going to use. You know, and also what benefits they're going to get from it. Particularly, let's take those who have children overseas.
Yeah.
Man, even the children who right there.
Yeah. But Allison,
you still have to be,
yeah.
you know,
but Allison,
smartphone. Yeah.
We can have the technology as an issue. But I think in addition, and there are some who the technology itself is not the issue, but it is just a reluctance to learn something new.
Something new, right? You know, so I mentioned technology as one thing. It's not the only
because
thing.
I think a lot of them hide behind that. And sometimes there is the fear, is this, and I'm asking the question, is this reasonable? Am I as sharp as I was back then? And would I fail at this attempt to learn something new? Because
I was going to say the argument to counteract that would be, you have to keep your brain active to avoid dementia. And if people will understand that,
yeah,
you know, my mother is going to be 100 years old, God bless her. And she knew instinctively she had to keep her brain sharp. She does all kinds of things to keep her brain sharp. She's probably more alert mentally than people half her age, just because she worked at it. She would always reading and writing and doing puzzles and having discussions about all kinds of things. It's an awareness of the world and an alertness that comes with practice. Is one of, you know, that phrase, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah.
Applies to the brain. So if we can get that message across to people, that one way of keeping your brain active is learn something new every month.
I wanted not to keep your brain active. I want to say one way of presenting the archaeologists in the future from finding your decomposed bones at the back of the cave is to keep your brain active, stay involved, learn new things. You
have to learn something. Doesn't matter what it is. A new way, you know. I did something, it has been very cold and wet, so I haven't been out, although COVID keeps me in as well. But just to find something different to do. I reorganize all my kitchen cupboards and put things in different places, which forces me to go, you know, not to fall into this rut with my eyes closed. I could open that door and get something. And something else is now there. Where are the glasses? In another cupboard over in the kitchen. Just rearrange. It's a creative rearranging, but the creative energy, you know, when people talk about the human development and they always forget, you know, that creativity is a part of it, and creativity is not just drawing and painting. It's putting your brain to use in whatever way you can. Find and learning something new. The key is learning something different.
Or joining a group,
new.
Doing something with a group.
But again, linking it back to what, you know, we were talking about, what the pandemic has done is prevent people from meeting in person. We're back to the technology now. That's how you're going to meet. And that's where you're going to learn something new. There are all kinds of classes about, you name it, there is a class somewhere on it. Local, international, global, you know, there is something to be learned. And learning something that you had no interest in before, but, you know, just to challenge yourself.
Something simple.
Something simple. You don't have to get a certificate or a degree or anything in it. You're just testing yourself out. You don't have to be the best in the class, or, you know, you're just challenging your brain to do something that you have never done before. A foreign language, you don't have to end up being fluent, but you're just going to learn some vocabulary and so on.
So many universities have free online courses, short courses, a 5-week course, a 3-week course.
Anything,
your brain.
You name it, there is something.
CONEC-TIONS has programs, but
what I would like to say here, and when we talk courses and programs, some people freeze up and think it's like going back to study something.
Yeah.
Would you also say outside of doing courses or program, just coming together as a group and have discussions,
And sharing information.
forums discussing, topics that they may be
Anything,
interested in would
Mhm.
help, in terms of keeping the
Any
brain
sharing
going.
of
Yeah,
new information, which is where
right.
in a
Yeah.
group, someone brings up a point that you never heard before, and it introduces a new way of thinking. But we back to the point, what the pandemic has done, in addition to already having people who didn't want to do something, and now having to stretch them further. You challenge them. Yes, you have to learn something new, or talk to new people and meet new friends of all different age groups. Now we'll say, well, you can't go out and meet them. Now you have to apply technology to it, So the two problems got to be solved.
The alternative is to be found in the back of the cave. Allison, I love this point about the link between learning, brain activity, and dementia.
Mhm.
And as you were saying, some people fear that more than death. But we seem set up in this cave that we're locking ourselves into accelerate the process.
Accelerate it. And if people think of how much they fear the idea of dementia, but there are things you can do. And I remember writing a blog about it. You have to do stuff. Yes, there's a physical aspect of that, but the brain is a physical part of you as well. And we want to exercise everything else. And you feed your body and you feed your brain with nourishing food as well. But you have to use it. So this fear that people have, oh, I'm going back to school. No, you're not going back anyway. You're going forward. Every time you add a new element to your brain, that's a step forward. It's not a step back. It doesn't matter what it is you learn. All it has to do is challenging your brain with a piece of new something. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it is making up your bed a different way, a more creative way, and standing back and going, hey, that looks good. That's a challenge to your brain, the creative activity. I mentioned learning a foreign language, and again, it's not necessarily that you want to be fluent in it, but you want, if you see the word appear somewhere, to say, hey, I know what that word means.
I love rearranging the kitchen cupboards. Rearranging clothes.
Your closet, your house, whatever. It's challenge. Anything like that is challenging your brain. Reading, but exchanging ideas with people. Giving other people a chance to speak when you are in a group, because they're going to say something different, and it's not a matter of telling them they can't say. I say, oh, I never thought about that before. Tell me more about it. Anything that involves difference between what you knew before and what you know now, or what you could do before and what you could do and something different now, that's challenging your brain and keeping your brain active and busy and nourished. And nourished for the brain is yes, physical, nutrients, food, but your brain was designed. That's the purpose of it, to keep busy and active, because that's what keeps everything else going forward. That's what makes you learn to walk. If you were in an accident and having physical therapy, your brain has to tell your foot to do something. You have to keep your brain working. And people cannot just sit down and want things to stay how they were before. One of the challenges of the pandemic is how to do things differently.
Yeah.
Yes, there is the anxiety and there is the fear and there's the reality of that, but it's also how do you do things differently from how you did them before? Whatever it is.
Allison, can I ask a question? How does worrying affect the brain?
Worrying is not about the brain. Worrying is about stress. The stress on the body and the mind, and yes, on the brain, in the sense that you're doing this anxiety feedback thing, which is really what worrying is. Anxiety feedback. It's anxiety built upon anxiety built upon anxiety, because your worrying is about something that you cannot fix. You're worrying about the future. You don't know what's happening tomorrow. The pandemic is a classic example. Nobody knows, but you worrying about what will happen to you. You're worrying about what will happen to the world, the children. You're worrying about anything. Food. You're just worrying, and that's
just about life.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
recursive anxiety. Where it's not constructive.
It doesn't build brain cells.
It doesn't.
Like
No, it doesn't
learning.
build. No, it stresses your brain cells. Is really what it is doing. You're not allowing your brain to do its thing. You're blocking it by stressing it out with something that is totally non-productive.
Okay, so it's almost the opposite effect of learning.
It is the opposite. It is the opposite.
And so many of us spend time worrying.
And which is why worrying, which is why we may make a comment on it, but it is true that worrying will age you. Because it's aging the body. You're stressing, as I said, it's not the brain, but you're stressing your entire system out by putting it into a recursive anxiety situation that is non-productive. So you have physical symptoms. You're gonna get headache and all kinds of aches and pains from worrying, and your body, then it affects your digestive system. You can't eat. Why? Because you're worrying.
Yes.
Your food is not digesting. Why? Because you're worrying.
And then you begin to look like the worry.
Exactly.
And just the fact that worrying will age you, I think that
it does.
Will tell you that you have to have some reversal of that.
Yeah.
You are find some way to reverse
entire
that
system out, and that's what worry. It is totally non-productive. So people have to find something else to do with that energy that they're using purposelessly. In other words,
yes.
This energy that you're putting into worrying and burning it up and burning out your system can be put somewhere else. So find out what you can do that's productive. Instead of worrying, what could you do instead?
Learn something new. Cook a different recipe. Exactly. Come to a forum. Do something different. Right. Wow.
Cooking is a really creative thing. You can't go out to restaurants. Hey.
Yes.
You cook a meal. People have cooked meals together on Zoom. Just sharing the recipe while they're cooking and chatting. And
I think the bottom line from what you're saying is get yourself active. Finding things you like, and we say it all the time on Connections. Find things that you like to do. Keep being active. We tell people connect with each other on the phone, on Zoom, different ways.
But even a better challenge for it is, let's say something that you swear you don't like to eat. You don't hate it. Black eyed peas, for example, seems to be everybody hates it. And I said, try cooking it in a different way, and So people may say, well, when I went to school, I never liked languages. That's not a reason not to try and learn something, or just for the fun of it, just for the challenge of it. And you may find that, hey, I never thought I was good at this.
Even if you learn 4 phrases.
Yeah, you don't even have to be good at it. It is just a matter of doing something different that you never did before, or challenging yourself with something you saw you didn't like. You didn't like to do that. You didn't like to eat that. You didn't like to go here. You didn't like to talk to people younger than you. Hey, try talking to someone younger than you for a change.
Change the cycle.
Yeah.
Look for ways.
If you have no friends in your age group, then have friends in another age group.
Exactly.
That kind of thing. Yeah.
I think that this has been, I'm looking at our time and we're almost our hour.
Right.
But I just find that this is so encouraging and hopeful for me, because you're getting weary of the I can't. And there is so much that can be done, even in this pandemic. As you say, worrying ages you. Do something, use your brain cells, learn to do something differently. There's so much that can be done free. And I swear, nobody's finding my bones sealed in the back of any cave. I will be 2 blocks down the road.
Many ways in which we could light up that cave.
Well, you can't put a stone in front of it, because that's it. So the idea of not trying to prevent yourself from doing that And even while you're in there, some light has to come in there. And
Through
since you can't
technology.
go, you know, so if you have to leave that doorway open, you
Absolutely.
know, and you also have to invite light in other ways. Thankfully, technology is all lit up. All screens have light. It's a, you know, so it's a good idea to remember that okay, you have natural light, but you have other kinds of light as well, and that people have to, you know, have to live in the light.
Yeah.
You know, and not in the darkness.
That's so true.
Oh, that's true. That one, yeah.
You have to live in the light. You have to, you know, yes, darkness is associated with, you know, sleep and rest, but when you are up
When you're awake and you're living.
Yeah, you have to.
Ariana, like that as the closing remark.
Live in
the light and not in the dark.
Live in the light.
This is great.
And the word light has also been associated with learning, you know, all the
enlightened.
Enlightenment, yes.
Exactly.
So learning is not about school buildings and textbooks. Learning is anything new, you know, that your brain has not encountered before.
Great. It's
in
not
whatever
worrying.
form, it comes, it's learning. And worrying is so counterproductive to life and to energy and to your being, and you know, you're on your own light. You know, that worrying will turn off your lights. So, so there's absolutely nothing ever that has been solved by worrying. Absolutely nothing.
Allison, this has been phenomenal. I think we are well tuned. I take it, we're taken away. You're not finding me in the back of the cave, continue on learning, and I'm living in the light.
Living, yeah, like, you know.
That's what, Jen? Right. Okay. Jen, any closing words, Allison?
The cave syndrome.
Great.
You know, to do anything you can to get out of it, to not roll the stone in front of the door, to bring light into it in whatever way you can, and to definitely not invite the depression that is part of the cave syndrome. Yes, part of the darkness, part of the syndrome of crawling into the cave and staying there is what people have been doing, and they need to know. Don't roll that stone to the door, which is what a lot of people have been doing, you know. And it's difficult, it's challenging, but we need to find ways to bring light into the caves that we have retreated into.
Great.
and to leave the doorway open and clear.
Thanks again. It has been very encouraging. I'm smiling in this. I brought light into my cave. You know, I took a lot of notes as you were speaking.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right, great.
Oh.
Yes.
All right, Jennifer. Jennifer, this cave talk is serious talk, you know. This is really serious talk.
And you know, Terry Ann, and I like this part here. See a different vision of life. When Allison said that, see a different vision of life, it reminded me again of what we're going to do about the vision board.
What we've been talking about. So
our upcoming forum. Because to see that vision, that new vision, you really have to start creating it, you know? And what best way to create it than for us to just, you know, have this board and have others to join us. So we wouldn't feel alone, you know? So definitely.
You know, I think that what she said, you know, learning and worrying and any activity. Forget learning is not going to school and it's hard and tests and exams.
Yeah.
It's any activity. And we are the generation that is going to get lost in that cave. And come on, start to search, Google the internet, whatever inspires you, Google and look for images. Bring your images together and let us really build those vision boards and let's get going. Because I swear that image of the cave and the stone rolling in front is a tool.
So we have to see the light among the darkness.
Yes,
We definitely
bring
have
in
to
the
lighten
light.
up the darkness.
Yes, yes. We are not going to be those people. 50 plus 5.8 G, we are not going to be those people.
So Tarian, so what we'll do by reminding persons about our forum.
Yes. And the forum is not only allows you to think about what you want to do, as simplistic, it doesn't have to be anything great, any new thing that you want to do, but it also allows you to meet with other people, talk to other people, exchange ideas. When last you went somewhere and had a nice chat and laughed? You know, we guarantee that you will have fun at the forum.
Great.
So,
Yes.
so let's listen to that at one score and don't waste time. Make sure, click the registration. It's right there on YouTube and Facebook. And you and Gael go onto our Facebook page and register. Let's make sure that we have windows and doors and lights in our caves, in our bunkers. So we will see you next week. Okay? Bye.
Say bye for now.
It's 2022, and we invite our 5.8G tribe to join us in creating a vision board to bring your dreams alive. Register now, and let's have some fun on Friday, the 28th of January at 6:30 p.m. Cost is only 200 TT or 30 US. You can also call Terry-Ann or Jennifer at 868-682-9202 or 685-8834. We are all excited to meet with you.
50 Plus Tribe and followers from Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean.
Thank you for joining us on this Connections 50 Plus 5.8G Alive show.
We hope you enjoyed the lively conversation and look forward to seeing you next week.
Don't forget to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
We really love getting your feedback. Bye for now.